Machiavelli warned over 500 years ago, "A man who wishes to act in all circumstances like a good man is doomed to ruin among so many who are not good." The world will never reward you simply because you are kind. It will smile at you, use you, and when you are no longer useful, it will discard you without hesitation or guilt. And yet, since the day you could speak, you have been told the opposite. You've been told that goodness is its own reward, that patience and sacrifice will earn you respect, that if you just keep giving, keep yielding, the universe will find a way to pay you back. That story was not written for your benefit. It was written for theirs, for the ones who profit from your obedience. Because a person who never confronts, never resists, never offends, is the easiest to control, and in a world that runs on power, control is everything. Look around you. In your workplace, who holds influence? Is it the person who always says yes, who never questions, who bends to every demand? Or is it the one who knows when to say no, when to draw a line, when to make others pause before they speak? In politics, in business, in every arena where resources and status are at stake, it is never the perpetually agreeable who dictate the terms. It is those who have mastered both perception and power. But here you are, still playing by rules written to keep you harmless. You apologize when you have done nothing wrong. You explain your decisions as if you need permission to act. You soften your words so they do not pierce, and you pretend not to notice when others take more than they give. And each time you do, you step further into the role they want for you. The good person who is safe to ignore, safe to use, and safe to betray. This is not a video to comfort you. This is not where I tell you that your kindness is a gift and that the world will eventually see it. This is where I tell you the truth you have avoided. Kindness without strength is bait. And bait does not win the game, it feeds the winner. Over the next minutes, I am going to show you why being good will get you crushed, and more importantly, how to become the kind of person Machiavelli would respect, someone who can be kind when it serves them, ruthless when it's necessary, and untouchable at all times. Because if you cannot learn to play the game as it truly is, you will be nothing more than a piece moved by those who can. From the moment you were old enough to understand words, the world began feeding you a story. Be good, be fair, be honest, and you will be rewarded. It sounded noble and you believed it, because it came from the mouths of people you trusted. Parents, teachers, leaders, the very structure of society. But here is the truth. That story was not designed to help you win. It was designed to make you manageable. A good person is predictable. They will hesitate before defending themselves because they don't want to seem rude. They will give more than they can afford because they are afraid of disappointing others. They will avoid conflict at all costs because they think harmony is more important than justice. And that predictability makes them easy to control. You don't need to threaten a good person to get what you want. You just need to make them feel guilty. Look at your own life. How many times have you stayed silent in a meeting because you didn't want to appear arrogant? How many times have you taken on extra work because you didn't want to seem unhelpful? How many times have you agreed with something you didn't believe in just to avoid friction? And what did you get in return? Maybe a thank you, maybe nothing at all. But certainly not more power, more influence, or more control over your life. In the real world, value is not measured by how much you give. It's measured by how much others fear losing you. The colleague who gets promoted is not always the most competent. It's the one who is hardest to replace. The leader who commands loyalty is not the one who is endlessly kind. It's the one whose presence makes betrayal feel dangerous. And yet, the myth of the good person persists because it serves those in power. Kings, CEOs, politicians, they all benefit when the masses believe that quiet obedience is the highest virtue. A compliant workforce will not unionize. A submissive citizenry will not revolt. A perpetually agreeable friend will never question your selfishness. And so the story is repeated generation after generation until you accept it as truth. But Machiavelli saw through it centuries ago. He understood that the world does not operate on moral reward. It operates on leverage. And leverage is not given to the harmless. It is taken by those who know how to balance the image of virtue with the capacity for consequence. Until you accept that, you will continue to live in service of everyone's comfort but your own, and they will thank you for it while taking everything you have. The illusion must be broken before anything else can change, because as long as you believe that being good is enough, you will never question why the people who rise to the top are rarely the ones who play by that rule. And once you see this truth, the question becomes unavoidable. If goodness alone doesn't win, what does? The first rule of power is this: the world does not care about your intentions, only your impact. You can mean well, you can be sincere, you can sacrifice endlessly. But if your actions do not create consequence, they will not create respect. The good person forgets this. They think their moral purity will be recognized and rewarded. They mistake being liked for being valued, and so they spend their lives earning smiles while someone else earns control. In politics, the most admired speeches mean nothing without the votes to enforce them. In business, the most selfless employee can be replaced in a day if their absence causes no disruption. On the battlefield, the bravest soldier is irrelevant if they cannot change the outcome of the fight. In every arena, power respects only what it cannot ignore. Machiavelli understood that human beings are not driven primarily by gratitude, but by self-interest. A ruler who relies solely on goodwill is a ruler who will be abandoned when loyalty becomes inconvenient. That is why he wrote, "It is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both." This is not a call to cruelty. It is a recognition that love is voluntary, but fear is enforced. And in a world where alliances shift and promises break, enforcement wins. The good person violates this rule constantly. They say yes to everything thinking it will make them indispensable, but in truth it makes them replaceable, because they never create scarcity. They make themselves endlessly available, and in doing so they train others to take them for granted. Power is built on the opposite principle. The less you give, the more each gift is worth. The less you speak, the more weight your words carry. The less you bend, the more others must work to earn your compliance. Consider the wolf in a pack. It is not the one constantly wagging its tail that commands respect. It is the one whose position others do not challenge, because the cost of challenging is too high. Harmless wolves do not lead, they follow. And in human terms, harmlessness is often mistaken for morality. But in the eyes of the ambitious, it is simply weakness waiting to be exploited. This is the rule most good people will never face. The game is not about being the nicest piece on the board. It's about being the piece that changes the game entirely. And once you see the board for what it is, you have to decide, are you here to play, or are you here to be played? No one is born afraid to offend. The child who screams when hungry, who demands attention, who throws a tantrum. But over time, the leash is fastened. First by parents, who punish defiance and praise compliance. Then by teachers, who reward quiet obedience and label independent thinking as disruptive. Then by workplaces, which celebrate the team player who sacrifices endlessly for the group, while promoting the one who understands how to take credit. Slowly, you are trained to measure your worth by how easy you are to manage. You learn to bite your tongue when your ideas challenge authority. You learn to smile when you feel disrespected. You learn that to keep peace, you must keep yourselves small. And with each repetition, you internalize the rule: approval is survival. This conditioning is so effective because it hides itself as morality. They don't say, be easy to control. They say, be polite. They don't say, suppress your ambition. They say, don't be selfish. They don't say, sacrifice your power. They say, be humble. The words are different, but the outcome is the same. You become less threatening, more compliant, and therefore more useful to those above you. Harmlessness becomes your default, and because it has been rewarded your entire life, you mistake it for virtue. You tell yourself you are avoiding drama, when in reality you are avoiding confrontation you might lose. You convince yourself you are being professional, when in truth you are protecting the comfort of people who have no intention of protecting you. This is not nobility. It is submission dressed in the language of decency. The leash is no longer in their hands. It is in your mind. You censor your words before they leave your mouth. You hesitate before asserting a boundary. You dilute your own truth until it is safe enough to be ignored. And the most dangerous part? You have done it for so long you no longer notice you're doing it. Machiavelli would see this for what it is, a form of self-imprisonment more efficient than chains. Because when people police themselves, no guard is needed. And as long as you continue to wear the collar they gave you, you will never threaten the throne. You will guard it for them. Which is why the first step toward power is not to fight the enemy in front of you, but to dismantle the enemy inside your own head. Harmlessness feels safe until it costs you everything. The tragedy is that you rarely see the cost until it is too late. By the time you realize your voice doesn't carry weight, the decisions have already been made without you. By the time you realize your loyalty is not returned, the knife is already in your back. History is littered with the corpses of the overly virtuous. Take King Louis XVI of France, indecisive, eager to appease. While he hesitated, the revolution organized. While he tried to be fair to all, the most ruthless seized control. His good intentions did not save him from the guillotine. The court did not remember his kindness. They remembered his weakness, and they punished it. In the modern world, the same principle plays out in boardrooms and offices. Picture the employee who never says no, who covers for everyone, who works weekends without complaint. For years, they believe their sacrifice will be recognized, and then, when budgets are cut, they are the first to be let go, replaced not because they failed, but because they were easy to replace. Meanwhile, the colleague who set boundaries and refused extra work still has their job, because no one dared to push them out. Even in personal relationships, excessive harmlessness corrodes respect. The friend who never disagrees, who always lets you choose the restaurant, the movie, the plan. Eventually, you stop asking what they want, not because you dislike them, but because they've trained you to believe their preferences don't matter. In the end, their absence changes nothing, because their presence changed nothing. Machiavelli would call this the fatal flaw of the perpetually agreeable. They do not understand that value comes from the ability to affect outcomes. If your presence does not change the calculations of others, your absence will not change them either. And when that happens, you have already lost, you just haven't been removed yet. This is the price of being too good. You avoid short-term discomfort, and in exchange, you accept long-term invisibility. You keep the peace today, and forfeit your influence tomorrow. You gain approval from those above you, but never power over them. And eventually you discover that in the eyes of the ambitious, kindness without consequence is not virtue. It is an invitation. Machiavelli taught that a ruler must be both the fox and the lion. The fox sees the traps, the lion frightens the wolves. Either alone is insufficient. A ruler who is only a fox may avoid danger but will eventually be devoured by those stronger. A ruler who is only a lion may intimidate enemies but will stumble blindly into their snares. The fox's strength is perception, the ability to notice the shift in a rival's tone, the alliances forming in the shadows, the opportunity hidden in chaos. The fox reads intentions before they are spoken. It survives not by brute force, but by always being one move ahead. This is the part most good people lack, not because they cannot see, but because they refuse to look too closely, afraid of what they might find. The lion's strength is presence, the knowledge that certain lines cannot be crossed without consequence. The lion does not explain, does not plead, does not ask permission. It acts decisively, and in doing so it shapes the behavior of everyone around it. This is the part most good people fear, the willingness to be the source of discomfort, the cause of someone else's hesitation. True power comes from moving between the two at will. When your enemies believe you are only the fox, they prepare traps for you, but the lion crushes them before they can spring. When they believe you are only the lion, they attack with subtlety, but the fox sees through the deception. This is how you become untouchable, by ensuring no one can predict which version of you they will face, only that both are dangerous. History rewards those who mastered this balance. Julius Caesar used the fox's charm to win the loyalty of the Roman people, and the lion's ruthlessness to crush his rivals in the Senate. In modern business, leaders like Steve Jobs used the fox's vision to anticipate trends and the lion's force to push through resistance, even when the world told him he was wrong. These figures were not loved by all, but they were respected by all who mattered. The lesson is simple, but it is not easy. Cultivate the perception to see every trap, and the strength to make every threat costly. This combination forces others to calculate around you, and once they are calculating around you, you have already won half the game before it begins. Escaping the good person trap begins with a single shift. You stop giving by default. Kindness is no longer a reflex, it is a calculated act, delivered only when it serves your position. This means you draw your boundaries like borders on a map, and you defend them as if your survival depends on it. When you say no, you say it without apology, without explanation, and without delay. The moment you start justifying your limits, you hand over the power to negotiate them away. You must also abandon the need to be liked. People who need to be liked are easy to control, because the threat of disapproval keeps them obedient. Respect is harder to earn, but it cannot be withdrawn so cheaply. You do not need universal approval. You need the strategic loyalty of those whose influence matters. That means being willing to lose the crowd in order to keep the throne. Control your availability. If people can always reach you, they will never fear losing you. Make your presence a resource that must be earned, not an open tap. In politics, in business, even in friendship, scarcity elevates value. A person who is constantly visible becomes part of the scenery. A person who appears only when it matters becomes an event. You must also master consequence. Machiavelli understood that power is sustained not by cruelty, but by the certainty that betrayal will cost more than loyalty. You do not need to raise your voice or make threats. A well-timed removal of privilege speaks louder than anger. Let the punishment fit the offense, and let it be remembered longer than it is discussed. And above all, you must learn to shift between the fox and the lion without warning. Let them underestimate you in conversation, then strike when they assume you are pliable. Let them feel at ease one moment and unsettled the next. Predictability is the death of influence. Uncertainty is the beginning of control. When people are unsure which version of you they will face, they will treat both with caution. This transformation is not about becoming ruthless for the sake of ruthlessness. It is about reclaiming your ability to choose when to yield and when to stand, when to charm and when to strike. That choice is the essence of power, and without it, you are not choosing at all. The world is not a courtroom of morality, it is an arena of power. In that arena, the harmless are not respected, they are managed. If you remain the good person they trained you to be, your future will not be shaped by your choices, but by the will of those who are willing to impose theirs. Kindness is not a weakness, but it becomes one when it is constant, unguarded, and free. The most dangerous people in any room are those who can offer generosity or withhold it, whose goodwill is a privilege, not a guarantee. That is the position you must claim, not because it feels good, but because without it, you will spend your life negotiating for scraps of influence, you should already own. The clock is already running. Every day you spend waiting for recognition is a day someone else spends taking what could have been yours. Power respects action, and action begins with refusal. Refusal to be predictable, refusal to be endlessly available, refusal to be anyone's safe option. So decide now, will you stay the agreeable one, easy to like, easy to ignore, easy to replace? Or will you become the one who commands caution in your absence, who changes the balance of every room you enter, who no one dares to harm? Machiavelli's truth has not changed in 5 centuries. The only question is whether you will.